right, afternoon, everyone. It's Don with Puddle Pirates. So joining me today is Johny Neilson with Neilson Leather Company, another active duty coastie owned business, kind of operator on the side, operator on the day. So Johny, appreciate taking time today and sharing a little bit about your story of your company.
Thanks for having me.
So Johny, let's start first. Give us an overview of your Coast Guard career, a little bit of background on yourself, kind of where you ended up, where you're at today.
Yeah, what really started it was going to Yukon in Avery Point in Groton, Connecticut, and hating my economics class to the point where I was skipping class. And then I, realized that I needed to do something with my life. And so I enlisted in the Coast Guard behind my parents' back. So that's what started it all. After boot camp, I went to Station Annapolis in Maryland. Followed that up with a 4-year tour in Baltimore. Then went overseas to Bahrain, to Seattle, to a 378, and then down to Station Golden Gate in San Francisco, and now in Boston. So,
all right. So out of all that, well, actually, I'll go back. Do your parents ever come around and kind of embrace this career you chose?
Yeah. 16 years later, they're totally behind it. They're proud of me and my wife and stuff, and they tell us every day. So
yeah, awesome. And what I guess rank are you?
I'm a SK1.
All right, perfect. So I don't know if you saw, finally released an SK rate shirt a couple months ago. So I had a lot of SKs asking for their own design. So put it up on the site. And when were you in Bahrain?
2015 to 2016.
Okay. All right. Perfect. I was in 309, PSU 309. So we had a good contingent that kind of hung out in Bahrain while we were over there a little bit, but wasn't sure if there was an overlap from that standpoint. So, all right. So 16 years in, I'm guessing you're pushing for the final 4, if not a little bit farther, huh?
Yeah, at least 20.
Yep. Yeah. Perfect. So that's good. So out of all those places you named, I guess, where's your favorite station?
I mean, they all have their perks. I would say Station Golden Gate was by far the most beautiful. Literally the front door of the station looked out at the Golden Gate Bridge, and you could literally see the fog rolling in, hour by hour. The 378 was also a lot of fun because it gave you so much adventure, down south doing, the Jyatifs, and up north doing the fishery patrols. So you really got to see like the entire Western seaboard. So, I would probably say Bahrain for the experience, the 378 for, the adventure aspect, and then Station Golden Gate for just the pure beauty of the surrounding area.
Yeah, you get a pretty good mix of places to explore. It's not like you hung out in just one district, hanging out in Southeast or D7 for the entire career. So
exactly,
got some good experience there. Right. All right. So Coast Guard, how you ended up there? Good. How'd you end up with leather goods? Right. Like, what happened there that transition to what you're actually doing today, kind of on the side?
Yeah, great question. I think it all stemmed from, I've always been a huge supporter of handmade, supporting small businesses, and also supporting local. So I'm from Connecticut, and, New England has always held a special place in my heart. So I was really focused on supporting small business makers in the New England area. That kind of backfired because I realized that the small businesses weren't so small after all, and their handmade products were more so mass produced on a much smaller scale. So once I got those leather goods, it was two leather wallets and stuff. I quickly found that the quality wasn't what I wanted, what I expected, and kind of put a bad taste in my mouth for supporting small businesses. So I really started based on the thought of I can do this better. So that, and then I saw one of my buddies at Station Golden Gate, Spencer Hayes. I'm not sure if he's going to watch this, but shout out to Spencer. He was making leather goods. He's got the Instagram channel small truck campers or something like that. I'm not
Okay.
sure if you know it, but I'll tag him in the comments when you post this video. But he was making small leather goods, obviously handmade, for his kind of like following of like the small camper trucks, that whole movement that was going on. And it all happened in 2019, right before the government shutdown. So right before, the Coast Guard didn't get paid for that, 45 days or whatever. That's when I really started to kind of pick up speed with what I was doing. And I started off by only doing coasters and keychains, stuff that was manageable, stuff that was, smaller, stuff that was easy. And it was coasters with the American flag or an anchor. So
Hmm.
I've always been pretty patriotic, and the anchor holds a special place in my heart because I grew up on the water and serve in the Coast Guard. So naturally, why not? But yeah, those two items, really kicked off, and I consider those the gateway drug to leather crafting.
No, it's an awesome story, but I'm curious. I don't know much about leather. I think I have a leather wallet, but I probably couldn't even tell you if it's actual leather or not. So when you first started kind of going, you had those two products, I guess, and you noticed the difference in quality. What is the difference in leather that kind of stood out to you, and some of the things that you could do or potentially could do to make it better?
I think the initial thought was I realized that the person that I bought these wallets from wasn't gluing down, and I'm actually like right next to all my wallets. So, I'll take one of these, and I'm not sure how well you can see this stuff, but he wasn't gluing down the outsides of each of the piece to each other. So he would put the pieces together and then just stitch them.
Okay.
So if they ever felt any resistance, then the outer piece could fold this way, and the inner piece could fold that way. But with my wallets, I glue every single piece together, and then I clamp them for a few hours. That way the glue sets and stuff, and it has a much firmer hold and stuff. So I've been carrying my wallets now for 5 years, and I've never experienced, given I switch them out pretty frequently because I just carry different designs and stuff, but I've never experienced one of my wallets to have that kind of splitting occur. So
Yeah, and for them, probably saves time, saves cost, and kind of
yeah,
mass produced to your point earlier, right?
yeah, and it saves a lot of upset customers from reaching back out months or years later and saying like, hey, what's going on with this wallet, like why is it falling apart, and then me potentially having to go out of pocket to either replace it or pay for them to ship it back to me so I can repair it and stuff. So me doing it better may take me a little longer to finish a product and stuff like that, but I think I'm putting out a better product in general. So
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the potential lost opportunity cost, essentially, if you had to redo it, remake it, all that goes into it to replace it. Not to mention, you could lose repeat business because they just might not even come back around, right? And a lot of people don't
correct.
think about that, with some of the products that they put out there. But so you bring up a good point. So you mentioned you probably switch out your wallets quite a bit, or your letter goods. How
Yeah.
many wallets do you have on your nightstand next to you?
Oof. I would say probably 10.
10? All right.
Yeah,
So
yeah, 10 that are in like a rotation. So, based on how I'm feeling, based on what I'm doing, if I want to do a smaller carry or something, I'll obviously choose a smaller wallet. But if I'm going overseas and, traveling or something like that, I'll bring a passport wallet or something similar. So it's all based on the need. Oh, did I cut out?
yep, you cut out for a little bit, but you mentioned you bring over or go overseas, you probably bring the pack, I think is what I
Yeah,
caught on that.
passport wallet, yeah.
Passport wallet. Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't feel as bad, I guess. Obviously owning Puddle Pirate, you can imagine my t-shirt drawer and my hat drawer is I have t-shirts for days. That's all I wear. And I
Yeah.
probably have about 15 to 20 hats that are just constantly in circulation. So
Yep.
I guess maybe I feel a little bit better of my own obsession of trying to rep the brand as much as possible.
Yeah,
you're kind of
absolutely.
going through the same thing too. So, all right. So, one thing I wanted to ask is, your active duty. It sounds like this kind of started as a passion hobby project early on, but kind of when you transition, I know you're on Etsy and you got a good following on Instagram. So when you kind of transition to making something of it and kind of creating a brand and sharing the love, if you will, out there on what you could produce, what were some of the challenges you faced early on and trying to get the venture going, but also maintain the integrity that you want with the products?
I think the biggest challenge was the reach, because um, when you come across someone who's brand new to a craft, obviously there's some challenges and stuff like, oh, does this guy have the experience to, glue down all the way around a wallet to prevent the wallet from, separating later on. I feel like that was a big part of the challenges I faced early on was, people questioning if I really knew what I was doing and stuff like that. So I did a lot of giveaways to try and push my product and stuff. And it was also during COVID. So I started making wallets like right after COVID really shut down the country, well, the world, I guess. And it kind of, hindsight, it kind of benefited us because there were so many small businesses that were Coast Guard owned that had popped up around that time that we all just kind of like formed together and were just posting each other's stuff every single day. So, if I had 100 followers, I was also exposing those 100 followers to, 4 or 5 other coasty brands. So, I gained a lot of traction, in the first few months, and just kind of pushing that patriotic product as well as like the anchors, and I started going for like small niche things. Like I went to school on an island in New York when I was growing up, so I knew that island had significant meaning to a lot of people, and so I started making coasters with that island on it, and those were selling like crazy. The grocery store on the island started putting in big orders for them and stuff like that. So, I was trying to find ways that I was trying to find things that had meaning to other people, larger amounts of people, that I could kind of, aim towards, and it worked out. So, but like to get to your point, the challenge was the reach and trying to break through that leather community, because I'll be honest, I think the leather community is kind of saturated. So there's a lot of people that are crafting right now. There's a lot of people that are, kind of stealing ideas. It's a challenge because, you can only do so much with a piece of leather. You can fold it so many ways to, create a pocket for cards and cash and stuff like that. That it's tough to really create your own ideas and stuff. So I've had a few of my patterns ripped off by a few other makers and stuff like that. So it kind of puts a bad taste in your mouth, especially when they have 50,000 followers, and at the time I only had like 10,000 followers or something like that. So sure, they're selling a lot more of my wallets because they have 5 times the amount of followers that I do, and they also have like a massive review base on whether it's Shopify or any of the other business platforms and stuff. So those were probably my biggest challenges.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's real for any of us out that have the brand, right? Just the reach and the way social media is, and it's kind of like the old emails. Is we're bombarded with so much, and especially when you think of Facebook and kind of how they changed the feed dynamics, and even Instagram now, you're not seeing as much organic reach in some of your posting content, but then you have the other big players out there that are looking at you and trying to rip off or duplicate kind of your process to maximize their reach. And it's unfortunate, but I mean, looking at your follower base and some of the stuff you're putting out there, and even on Etsy and some of your reviews, sounds like you're overcoming those challenges, maybe embracing them, getting past them quite a bit. So been in business maybe about 5 years now, it sounds, or approaching 5 years. What do you want to accomplish long-term? I know it's at least another 4 years in the Coast Guard for you, if not more, but what are you hoping to make of Neilson Leather?
I like where I'm at right now. It's, I'm averaging like 25 orders a month. So it's perfect for part-time, getting off work and just spending a few hours, a day, or, a few hours a week, depending on how I feel, down here in the garage, making leather goods, or, creating special orders for, my repeat customers. And that's kind of where I want it to stay. I don't want to burn myself out. So I just want to maintain it as a hobby, and, just kind of keep it as like I don't really feel like playing video games or watching TV or something. I'm going to go downstairs and, be productive for a little bit. So I just want it to stay a hobby. I want it to stay a hobby. I want to maintain the friendships that I've created and stuff, maintain those, those repeat customers and things. And just, if I increase sales when I retire out of the Coast Guard, then obviously that'll be awesome and stuff, but I'll never go full time with it, because I don't want to lose this, passion behind it and stuff. And, all the years of hard work that I've put into it. But I think the biggest goal for the leather business is to get my dream car, which is a Porsche 911.
All right. So you're working for something. There you go.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a good goal to accomplish. But I think there's, it's your business, whatever you want to do with it, make of it. I think you hit on a lot of things. Is some people take a passion and grow it, and then all of a sudden it becomes a burden, right? And they're burnt out. And I would imagine what you do could also be seen as therapeutic and the art form and the hands-on aspect. And if all of a sudden it grows, that's great from the brain standpoint, but it's not for everyone, right? Because then all of a sudden you're working longer, away from the family more. It's impacting maybe your day job, which hopefully it's not, right? Those types of things people don't often think about as they try to grow, but it sounds like you're in a pretty good spot. And I think maintaining friendships you mentioned, or the relationships, is I think what's cool about looking at your Instagram page and some of the products out there is like, it's truly an art form. It's art, if you will, in a product. And which is cool if you think about some of the individuals out there across the globe. I would imagine they're carrying your leather wallets or the passport wallets and those components, and there was something put into it. It's not mass produced. There was time in your garage. And if anything like my wallet, there's always a story that goes with everyone's wallet, whether you left it somewhere or you lost it, right? Those things, which is kind of cool to kind of see that it's all around what you've created.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is cool because, I'll randomly get people on Instagram that tag me in posts, whether it's a passport wallet and they're traveling overseas or whatnot, or a bag tag or just a wallet in general with like their everyday carry, or, morning coffee with the guys or something like that, because I can, just from seeing that picture, I can immediately place where I was like in my Coast Guard career and exactly where like this workshop was. And, it brings back memories of, making those wallets and stuff. So yeah, every piece has, some intimate value to it, that just like brings me back. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And you don't get that from just going on Amazon and ordering a leather wallet, right? Like,
For sure.
Might save a couple bucks, but probably not going to get the quality, definitely not going to get the love behind what you're producing out there. So that's definitely a great story that I think a lot of people don't realize, and something added edge why they should check out your offering versus somebody else's.
Yeah, 100%.
So that with the goal in mind, hopefully you get the Porsche there and you kind of hit that mark sooner than later. But, trying to take a look at everything you've gone through to kind of create this hobby into a little bit of something that is going to have some rewards with the car in the future. A lot of coasties have these ideas, have these passions, pursuing something, and you've gone through this quite a bit over the last couple of years. What advice would you give other coasties, whether they're still active or got out and are veterans, that are trying to scratch the itch, if you will, and trying to determine, hey, is this a good idea? Should I do this? What are some tips or advice that you would give those individuals?
Reach out. Like I said, during COVID, when, we were all trying to grow our businesses, we were just, brainstorming with each other, throwing it back and forth. And that's really how we got, to where we are. Why I would credit a lot of that with, those relationships early on is reach out, try and build a product that's genuine, try and build a product that you actually care about, that you're passionate about and that has meaning to you. Because that's what's going to drive you. That's what's, going to fuel that inner flame for you. And, if you find those coasties that are going to, get behind you and support you and, shout out your page or whatever, then, you're going to be exposed to hundreds, if not thousands of other people that you might not be, originally. So.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I mean, we're a small service, right? And a small community, and we're always looking to help each other out. I always think it's anywhere you go in the marketplace, if you see something coasty, typically we're going to buy it because we don't often see it, right? So that small community, we're all in it. And same with all the collaborators and business owners and hobbyists, I guess, if you will, is you bring up a good point, just reach out. More often than not, we're willing to help out, have these types of conversations just because we're all kind of in the same boat, but definitely proud of the service and what we're able to do with it on the outside too.
Definitely.
So, well, Johny, I appreciate the time today. Thinking through, you answered a few of my questions, but anything else you want to share with the community or anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to share with everyone today?
No, I don't think so. No, I think we've covered it all.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the time. Good luck out there, and look forward to seeing what you produce in the next Instagram reel or post out there.
Back at you, man. Thank you.
All right. Take care.